Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Elevating Your Life. Wow, I'm just so grateful to have you with us and share in that elevation and inspiration. We have with us Theresa Bruno, and I recently had her on the show and just enjoyed her so much. And we had so much more to discuss that I asked her back. Teresa's life reads like a fairy tale in many ways. Like life, though, fairy tales are often darkened with tragedy. And Teresa's life is no exception. She has suffered more than her share of pain. However, she is still writing her story, and in this chapter, she is vanquishing the fear and shame that gutted her after her husband's death and the sudden collapse of her business by bringing it into the light and talking about it fearlessly. As founder and designer for Jordan Alexander Jewelry, Theresa Bruno designed pieces for Oprah, Julia Roberts, Jennifer Hudson, Pink, and Michelle Obama, who named her a favorite designer. She is now the host of the Soul Talks podcast. Welcome, Theresa. So good to see you again, my dear.
So good to see you, Paula. You are always so loving and so gracious. And, I just always want to say to you how much I applaud all the good work that you put into the world and how much you are helping people heal through your podcast and your story.
Oh, thank you, my energy sister. Thank you. Oh, well, would you like to share maybe a little more of your background and then we'll just start having some fun and sharing your inspiring wisdom.
Well, thank you. Sometimes I don't know how inspiring it is because we all get pretty stuck. But I think when we were last together, where we ended it, because we just ran out of time and we were both talking so
Yes.
fast, and having such a good time. I was telling you kind of the ending of the fairy tale of having this crazy rise of a fine jewelry business, design business that was a passion business. And, it just kind of shot to the top really fast. And in just a very short amount of time, the press drove it. And I was on kind of, not me personally, but the designs were on the cover of almost every major fashion mag in the US and some in Europe. And then I was just moving so fast in life, running that business, married, two boys, and running another business, another full-time, very large marketing business. And I didn't know what was going on right underneath my nose. And for 2 years, a key employee had been committing fraud. And at such an egregious level, I had to close, I had to shutter the business, which was absolutely devastating to me. And, it's one of those times in life when you're sort of hit with, okay, I've never really failed like this. What went wrong? And you lose your grounding pretty fast, or I did. And I think I said to you, and I think it's important to note this, as a woman, and you know this so well because you've been an entrepreneur in multiple ways, and you know how hard it is to get backing and to own a business, run a business. But when I realized, that I could either pay back all these fraudulent credit cards and all these loans that were taken out in my name and I didn't know about it, or I could bankrupt. I mean, that just wasn't an option for me. There was so much shame that I took on. I'd never felt that kind of shame before. And I think women, entrepreneurs in business, I think we hold ourselves to a different emotional standard in terms of yeah, I see guys, shutter businesses and close businesses, and they go, "Oh, it's just business. This happened and this happened, and I'm going at it again," and not take it on so personally.
Mhm.
I walked away from closing that business just shrouded in shame and just really questioning myself. And it was that was February of 20. And then COVID, was announced, I believe, on March 11th or 12th of 2020. And then my beloved husband of my entire adult life, father of my two wonderful boys, took his life in the middle of April. So, in a very short amount of time, sort of my identity as a business person, as a creative, was severely challenged. And then everything I ever believed in, everything I ever, that I had built my life on for 29 years, it just went away. It was like it just was pulled out from under me. Now, it doesn't mean, and so I'm here, I'm 5 years into this next month. But it immediately thrust me into this place in life where I certainly was on a survival journey, whether I wanted to be on it or not. You know,
Mhm.
I was sitting here looking at a life that was just an absolute mess. And I was in a position where my husband had handled everything. I worked like crazy. I worked all the time, and he handled everything with whether it was house, car, insurance, yard people, you name it. He made that whole side of our lives work. And just had to start picking up very tangible pieces. And then there are all the questions that immediately happen, especially with suicide. And the questions are gut wrenching. They're, oh my gosh, why? What didn't I see? What could I have done to help keep him here? You have grief and you have sorrow, and then I'm carrying shame from the business. And then because it's suicide, it's just amplified
Yeah.
with feeling like I just like with the business, I could have done more. The business was nothing compared to James' life, but it was sort of on that same track of, oh my God, I completely missed here. I didn't see it. Why couldn't I have helped? And why didn't I know? So that began this journey that has been my journey for the last 5 years of trying to figure out how to survive, how to rewrite my story. And it didn't come fast. I really think it's important for your listeners to know that it's still at 5 years, not all tied up with a neat little bow. Um, and I think one of the things I've learned profoundly, and I get asked this all the time because, once you begin to share your story, as you know so well, we realize as human beings that every single person in this world is surviving something. You know, we just are. It's part of the human experience. And so as I would share my story, people would come forward and say, "Oh, I just lost my daughter. Can you tell me what to do to get through the first couple of weeks?" Or I just lost my husband. I'm a year in and I still can't get out of bed. And one of the things they would say in those questions is, "When will this pain go away?"
Mhm.
I began to say, grief is with you, I think, probably for a lifetime. You learn to manage it, but you kind of hold it. You hold your life over here in this hand, and you're trying to go forward. You're trying to rebuild. You're trying to figure out how to survive, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially. And over here, you've got this grief and sorrow. And in the beginning, it's so present that you just have to accept. You eat with it, you sleep with it, you go to bed with it. That grief is constant. And then you begin to learn how to manage it. It's a tightrope. But I couldn't tell you today, 5 years in, that I'm not still grieving. There are things that trigger me, and I'm reduced into a puddle. I recently moved back to Birmingham, Alabama after being gone for 3 years. It's my home with James for all the years we were married. And so I had not been able to face, when I sold the home we lived in together, all the memories, all the photographs. I just packed them up in boxes and put them in storage. Well, moving back here in the last 6, 8 weeks, I've been faced with unpacking all of that lifetime in memories. My garage is right out that window. And Paula, when I tell you, I have sat in that garage unpacking boxes and photographs and things from his desk, and I have wept like it just all happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But 5 years in, I understand it differently. I do have tools to deal with it. And I also welcome the tears. I don't push them. I say, okay, come on, let's do this. We got to do this. But I can put myself back together a lot more quickly these days.
Yeah. Oh, that's some beautiful words, Theresa, because yes, you do have that, and that goes with you forever. But you have the new days, the new experiences, new creations in your life. And, us both having husbands that killed themselves, it's, I strive to, as I move forward, I want to take those happy memories with me. I
Yeah.
want to cherish them, cherish those pictures and those moments.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is in this hand and this is in this hand.
Yeah.
And it's so true that, so many of us have things that we've struggled with and we have to move on with. And it's
You know,
wonderful for you to share information with others on this.
and there you can read all the literature on grief, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross or Dr. Katie Eastman or so many of the grief experts in the world today. And all of that is right and true, and we go through those stages, but we don't go through them in a linear way. What you just said is, I want to remember the good memories. And one of the things that was so important to me right at the very beginning, I had two boys in their early 20s who were so close to their dad. Nobody had any idea that something like this was even possible for our family. We just weren't that family. And the boys text and talk to their dad every day. My youngest son was in college at Alabama, and I knew that I knew that whatever I did in those early days after James' death and early in the survival journey, however I walked it was how my boys would walk it. So it was really important to me, like you said, to help them see, and then they helped me see. They were my best, I think, advocates for healing. But we learned to get together and tell funny stories about dad. Funny story, because he was hilarious. He had the best sense of humor. He was a goofball. And we, as a family, our thing had been don't give big gifts, don't give big Christmases, always give a trip, because we just wanted to experience the world with our children. And so we began to figure out, at first you feel like, oh my gosh, we're not even a family anymore. How can we be a family? Daddy's gone.
Mhm.
And we began to say, you know what, we are still a family. It looks so different than when dad was at the helm, but he gave us so much. And so, just like you said, we began to say, every time we'd sit down at dinner together or get together in any way, we would just make it a point to tell the good stories, the funny things, the
Oh,
great things, and to hold on to dad, James, my husband, in a way that I'm not saying we were like deifying him, but feeling the aliveness of what he left us with, because he
yeah,
imbued such kindness. He's the kindest man I've ever encountered. And he left us all with that. And, the boys have just been just amazing in their determination to carry their dad forward in their lives in the best of ways.
oh, wow, Teresa, that is just amazing. And oh boy, what a mom you are. Oh,
Well, I don't know, but God gives you, I think, extraordinary strengths at times,
yes,
in times like that.
yes,
It wasn't a functioning logical thing at first. It was just that somehow I really feel like it was God saying to me, Teresa, you can't dissolve right now, and you've got to get the boys together. They both have to be told at one time. One can't be told before the other, because whatever you do right now, they're going to remember for the rest of their lives,
yes,
because this is a pivot moment in everybody's life. And
yeah,
so I would credit myself with that. I would say that that was a God moment.
yes. And would you say when we lose someone suddenly and unexpectedly, it's like, at first, it's like, is this real? You know,
Oh,
there's that
Kitty,
just,
yeah, forever. I would,
yeah.
I was always the last one home in the evenings, and James was a phenomenal cook. So he
Oh,
always had dinner already cooking. I would text from the office, okay, I'm leaving. And, he would always have something started and he would hear my car coming to the garage and the wine was in the glass waiting for me to
Oh,
walk in. And I would drive home from the office and I'd walk in just expecting, and the kitchen was dark, and there was no food and there was no wine, or I'd be back in the bedroom and I think I'd hear him for the longest time, just the habits, the rituals of your life, you turn, there's a glance, you hear a song and you think they're right there. You think they are still alive. And I tell you, so many times had to tell myself, and this is the title of my book that's coming out in just a few weeks, he's not coming back. Now, the subtitle is, rewriting my story, a path from sorrow to healing or loss to healing, sorry. But he's not coming back was kind of a theme in my life. I'd have to say, Theresa, get a grip. This is not a short-term thing you're going through. He's not coming back.
it's forever. Life is different.
Dramatically, totally, existentially different.
Yes. So, how exciting to hear that you have a new book coming out, um, just this month in April.
I
I
know, I can't
love
even
it.
believe it. It's certainly been a labor of love.
Ah, and so would you say kind of the message in this book is helping us and others with the handling of and realizing life's different and they're not coming back and how to move on?
Exactly. What I set out to do was to tell the story of what happened with James and and the loss of my business. And in every chapter, there's a survival tool. It's what did I learn at this, juncture? What did I learn in acceptance? What did I learn about gratitude? What did I learn about rewriting? And so every single chapter has a survival tool in it. So it's hard. I think the first few chapters are tough to read because it's just so sad. But within it, I think that, and at the end of every chapter, I have a prayer of gratitude, even in the darkest of hours there was gratitude. There was gratitude for his life. In the
Mhm.
very worst of it, there was still gratitude for his life. So it is a journey of gratitude, and it is sectioned every single chapter with a survival tool. And then at the end of the book, there's an addendum that I'm even publishing as a second kind of handbook for survival. So as much as it is my story, more than that, my story is about wanting to give what I've learned in hopes that it helps others.
Thank you so much. And these survival tools are something that we can take in and they can, assist others in moving on and surviving their loss, whatever it is.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, oh, Teresa, thank you so much for that. I am really excited to read it. Oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you. I'll send you a copy.
Oh, thank you. I'm really grateful. I can't wait. Well, share with us um, some of what you do with your Soul Talks podcast
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how long have you been doing that? And
I'm
tell
in my
us.
second season. I started the Soul Talks podcast a little over a year ago on February 14th in honor of James. And I'll give you the backstory real quickly to that. I had a pretty large regional marketing firm and continued to run it after James' death, but all of the drive for success, for accolades, oh, you did a great job on this campaign. Oh, this client has, increased their numbers by, 5% this quarter, whatever. That just started not to mean very much to me. Success became about surviving. Success became about the littlest, smallest things in life that gave a sense of grounding and home and all those things. And so after about 2 years I sold my marketing business and kind of sat on the couch with nothing to do except listen to myself think for about a
Oh,
year. And in that year, it was really God at work. I knew I was being pulled at something. I wrote constantly. I knew I was being pulled to do something, but I didn't have it formed yet. And I was talking to a business mentor. I was talking to a spiritual mentor through all of that time, trying to figure out what's next for me. It's no longer driven by, how successful can I be? It's no longer driven by how much money I can make or what car can I buy or what house am I going to be in. Certainly, I needed to support myself, but it wasn't the run at success that I had always been about previously. And so I very quietly walked into doing this podcast with the idea that not only did I want to share my story, but I just wanted to create a space where others could share their suffering, their dark times, and their climbs out. Because, we don't give this, our culture doesn't give us time to grieve. We don't even have a language much for death and grieving, certainly not for suicide. And so I say I wanted to create a landing space for, the difficult things in life. So I started the podcast anonymously. I didn't even put my name on it. It was just the Soul Talks podcast. And ultimately somebody said, you really need to have your name on this.
I want to
And I'm
know
like, well,
who you
if
are.
they find it, they'll see my face, they'll hear my voice, I was so, first of all of those losses kind of beat you down a lot in your confidence. And I had suffered a lot with the shame of closing the jewelry business and had had a lot of social media chatter about that. And so I was not all that confident going into it, but I really felt spiritually it was where I needed to be. So I started the podcast, and we're now in our second season. We dropped an episode every single Wednesday for a year. And in that year, I began to expand it so that I brought on a resident therapist. So every Monday morning on my show, you can hear your therapy for the week with a wonderful therapist named Sherry. And then I interview somebody every single week. And then have a few little other light things in between, small talks with me, whatever's on my mind. But I've loved doing it. I've adored the people who've been on the show. They've taught me more than I think I could ever have given to them. And as you probably know so well, as we share our pain, it lessens the pain. We all begin to, kind of carry it for one another. So it became, I didn't start it selfishly. I didn't start it for myself, but the gift in it was that it heals me.
So, would you say sharing our difficulties and our pain with others and also allowing them to share theirs, it's like, you know, we both gain in the caring and the understanding and support of each other.
Yeah, I have this phrase and I teach it, I talk about it over and over and over. Sharing your pain lessens its power. I really advocate for all of us to have a close circle of friends or family,
Mhm.
because if you isolate in your pain, and I was in shame and I had to learn how to get out of the shame because shame keeps you in isolation and self-judgment. But when you have family and friends you can share with, and they're trusted sources, not just, splattering to people who don't hold your sacred places carefully. But I do completely believe that sharing your pain lessens its power.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And would you say in sharing, that works with that because we're not holding it in, we're letting it out.
Yeah, and I think, I think we tend to, most of us as individuals, feel some shame in our pain. And so we do isolate, we do hold it in. And it's the opposite. If you can share it, if you can let it out, and you'll find comrades alongside, what
Mhm.
I've learned is in telling it, there's always somebody who says, "Oh my gosh, I know exactly how that feels. I've been in that place. And let me tell you how I, survived it." And so you begin to like put together these people who champion you and they walk beside you in it. if you can share it. And it's not easy at first. It's easy for me to talk it, but it's not easy to share sometimes the things that hurt us the most, the places we've been betrayed in life, in business, in losses.
Yes, yes. And it's so easy in life when things happen to blame ourselves and, put ourselves down and struggle. What you're doing to help everyone is so wonderful. We have just a couple minutes left, Theresa. Please share your website information and what last message you want to give everyone today.
My website is soultalkswiththeresa.com. I said that my book will be coming out on Amazon on April 16th, and the title is He's Not Coming Back, Rewriting My Story from Loss to Healing. The Soul Talks podcast is my podcast, and you can listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcast, and then you can watch it. It's filmed as a show, so you can watch it on YouTube under the same name.
Awesome. What would you like everyone to think about as they move on today?
This might sound a little weird at the end of this conversation, but it's springtime. It's springtime everywhere.
Mhm.
And I like to think of our lives as gardens, and there's a quadrant for your personal life, the things you're thinking about spiritually. There's a quadrant for your friends and family. There's your business life, your money. And I think it's the time to think about weeding our gardens, rewriting our stories, and to look at that garden, just try to visualize and go, where are there some weeds? Where are there some rocks where nothing's growing? And allow whatever you believe spirit to be, whatever, you call God to be, just invite spirit in, because spirit works no matter what. And just say, help me this springtime to, connect to the highest source. Help me to live my best life. Water my garden in all of my quadrants. I want to see beautiful yellow flowers everywhere.
I love it.
I want to leave you with that.
I love it. All righty. We are going to move on today with watching our garden grow.
That's right.
And
That's right.
seeing our beautiful garden expand. I love that, Theresa. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so
I've loved it,
grateful.
Paula. You're always just a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Love, hugs, and blessings. And to
All
everyone
of that.
out there, love, hugs, and blessings. Oh,
Back
thank you so much.